Here's the top story we have been tracking here on WION. In another effort to forge a hostage release and truce in the 7-month war, delegations from Hamas and Israel are back at the negotiation table in Cairo. Israel's close ally Washington, which is also involved in the negotiations along with Qatar and Egypt, say that it's hopeful that the two sides can close the remaining gaps. Although Hamas officials have warned Israel that the talks in Cairo will be their last chance to free the estimated 128 hostages still held inside Gaza. In addition to that, Hamas official Osama Hamdan has also warned that if Israel's military aggression continues in Rafah, there will be no ceasefire deal.
If the aggression continues, there will be no ceasefire because Israelis are the ones attacking and shooting. It is normal for the resistance to respond to this aggression, to respond in defense and to respond in order to defeat the occupation.
The latest attempt to achieve a truce in the ongoing war comes at a time when Israel sent tanks into Rafah in southern Gaza, seizing the border crossing with Egypt. In an operation, the United Nations said it denied its access to the key humanitarian passage. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the military's capture of Gaza side of the Rafah crossing is an important step towards dismantling the group Hamas. Israel believes Rafah is where 4 Hamas battalions are stationed. Tuesday's capture of the crossing, which is one of the main channels for humanitarian aid to the territory, puts Israel in full control of Gaza's borders for the first time since it withdrew troops back in 2005. According to Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Israel will continue its operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah until Hamas are destroyed in the area or they hand over the Israeli hostages it still holds.
Yesterday, I directed the IDF to enter the Rafah area, take the crossing and carry out its mission. This operation will continue until we eliminate Hamas in the Rafah area and the entire Gaza Strip, or until the first hostage returns. We are willing to make compromises in order to bring back hostages, but if that option is removed, we will go on and deepen the operation. This will happen all over the Strip, in the south, in the center, and in the north. We know that Hamas only responds to force.
Now, to take the story further, we are being joined by Hanania Naftali from Tel Aviv. He is a leading Israeli expert on Middle East affairs and human rights activist. Mr. Naftali, good to have you on WION. How much of what's happening in Rafah right now could actually have a bearing on what's happening, the ceasefire talks that are currently underway in Cairo?
Well, we see that throughout these 7 months of war that Hamas only responds to military pressure. And I think that the best way to deal with terrorists is to give them a taste of their own medicine because they don't understand any language other than an iron fist. And so that is why Israel had to enter into the eastern part of Rafah, take over the crossing there. Within hours, we took down Hamas flags and we're flying Israeli flags. And this is something that you have to keep in mind, that we are dealing with a radical Islamic terrorist group that does not believe in our right to exist. So we have to fight them, not just for the sake of Israel, but for the sake of humanity.
Right. Mr. Naftali, do you think Israel is able to distinguish between Hamas and the people of Gaza?
Well, it is something that the Israel Defense Forces is excelling at, and that is being said and commended by many military experts around the world. Among them is John Spencer. But I have to say that this is a challenge because we see Hamas terrorists that disguise themselves as civilians, except that they also carry an RPG. The point is that you have Hamas terrorists that hide like coward rats in tunnels while putting their civilians above the ground at risk. They don't care for Palestinian lives. Israel cares for Palestinians more than the governing authority in Gaza. Hamas cares for them.
Mr. Naftali, in your own words, you say you're a human rights expert. At the same time, you advocate for peace in Middle East. I was just reading about you, and that's how I know that. Once, say that we have a ceasefire in the coming few weeks? I'm being optimistic here, but say we have that. What do you think will be left of Gaza?
Well, this is absolutely devastating to see, first of all, the level of destruction that Hamas brought to the Gaza Strip when it waged war against Israel, because keep in mind that Israel did not start this war. And there are talks about lack of humanitarian aid, lack of a lot of supplies. This is not true. Tons of humanitarian aid is crossing from Israel into the Gaza Strip. Actually, mere days ago, Hamas bombed the very border crossing, Israeli border crossing, from which humanitarian aid is crossing into the Gaza Strip. So the question that you have to ask yourselves is, how come they run out of everything in Gaza except for rockets? But the feeling of us Israelis is that generally we wish for peace. We don't hate Palestinian people. Our problem is with Hamas. And this is something that the Israel Defense Forces is instructing and commanding its soldiers. You are not targeting Palestinian civilians. You are targeting Hamas terrorists that abusing the Palestinian people. Just a few days ago, they shot Palestinian civilians on the allegation of stealing aid, while they every day steal humanitarian aid. Point is, they don't care for Palestinian lives.
Mr. Naftali, what you are saying, that begs the question then, the death toll we are seeing in Gaza, more than 30,000 people have died, and most of them are women and children. So then that begs the question, if at all Israel is only targeting Hamas or the people of Palestine. But for now, I'll have to end this discussion here. I'm completely out of time, but thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.